Hey, Cheap.
Hey, Cyrus.
How you doing today, man?
Not too bad.
Excellent. So let's talk a little bit about Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles and
Sure.
why they're so successful.
Sure.
I think they're a really strange property, honestly, but I really enjoyed watching it as a kid.
Sure.
I love the live action movies. Not everyone's some people are iffy on those, but I really thought they were fantastic as a kid. And then I really loved the cartoons, and so I feel like they've been able to really be in every medium possible.
Yes. Ninja Turtle is a very, very unusual property. I would say the reason they kind of became successful was probably due to the cartoon at the end of 80s and early 90s.
Sure.
And I think one of the reasons why it did well was very similar to marketing strategy of the time when they have Transformers G.I. Joe, where you have a cartoon and right there you can go buy the toys immediately after seeing the show. And there was a wide array of characters available for purchase.
I know I had the toys.
Oh, yeah. Well, I think that speaks really well to kids. Kids see something on screen, they get excited, and immediately can have it in their hands. It's a certain gratification to that. And I think that strategy worked very, very well for it. I mean, the Turtle existed, way before the cartoon came out as comic books. But I really felt, from my memory, it was the cartoon that kind of propelled into sort of pop culture, stardom. And I think another advantage it had at the time was all the other toy companies that had toy properties like He-Man, G.I. Joe, Transformers, Thundercats was starting to win out. So Turtle kind of came in to fill that gap right before, the 90s cartoon kind of became something totally different.
Right.
So it filled the gap. And so when you used to watch G.I. Joe and Transformers, you kind of easily move towards that because those shows were no more. They stopped, making them. And suddenly there's something that filled the void. And it was kind of colorful, exciting, action-driven, have clear heroes and villains.
Absolutely. It's a very straightforward plot that they push. One of the other things I find really interesting about it is comparing sort of the people there, and you compare them to Daredevil,
Yes.
They have the hand in one series, and then they have the foot land in another.
Well, Turtles were definitely a parody of Daredevil when they started. I mean, I even heard stories that they brought it to Marvel, and Marvel kind of just, didn't know what to do with it. So they end up, kind of producing the books on their own. It is quite interesting how, if you ever look at the first Ninja Turtle comic book, it's very rough. It's almost like a high school kid's drawing.
Right.
And there's nothing you would ever look at that and say, this is going to become a billion-dollar franchise down the line, which it kind of did. Which was probably the other unusual aspect, how it could come out and become as big and has such longevity in the process. One interesting thing about the Turtle is that it's never gone away as a property.
Yes.
It's not like G.I. Joe Transformers. There are periods when they were just gone from the market. Turtles has always been out there.
It's always existed in some format. Even with the more modern movies made, was it by Michael Bay, right?
Yeah, Michael Bay production.
I actually really enjoyed those even recently. I'm like, these are sort of nice.
Those weren't bad. It's funny because I remember going to see the first one. I had a checklist in my head saying, okay, and the checklist these are the things that make them turtles. They did get mutated. They're going to have a rat as a teacher. They're going to have a villain that's Shredder. There's going to be a reporter called April O'Neil as a human, assistant. Are they going to have all of that? And it was kind of a checklist of, okay, all of these things did happen. It actually didn't stray that far away from the original concepts.
Yes. And then, the CGI wasn't bad in the movie.
It wasn't bad. I felt they were a little too, powerful. Because in the modern day...
Yeah, they were hulking.
They were hulking out. They were basically have 4 giant hulks in the movie. But I think that was kind of the problem with a lot of modern movies. They push all the characters to the extreme.
Sure.
They're all bigger, better, smarter, faster than they ever were. But the movie I think people really enjoyed the most was the one that was made in the late 80s.
Sure.
The original one that was kind of done with Jim Henson puppeteer and all that kind of stuff. And they had Hong Kong martial artists inside the suits. And I remember when that came out, everybody wanted to see that,
Oh, absolutely. I even bought them on VHS and watched them over and over again.
That first movie was kind of spectacular. I think it was the Turtle, which, it started with the comic books, then the toys came out first. And then the cartoon helped propel the toys. And as those things were kind of working in unison, suddenly there was the movie. It went to movie very, very quickly from what I remember.
Yes.
And it was kind of like striking the iron when it was hot. And it really was kind of like, you felt at the time like, wow, this is nothing stopping that. Because back then, Transformers, G.I. Joe were gone. Thundercats were nowhere to be found. He-Man, nobody cares anymore. But suddenly Turtle was out there, and it's, you know, at the time I think it was fresh. You know, it was kind of fun. It was exciting. It was different. And you have stuff with martial arts. You know, you can never go wrong when you have characters fighting martial arts.
I also feel like they're sort of the opposite of like Spider-Man. You know, they're very agile, but you know, Spider-Man's up in the skyscrapers. They're in the sewers.
Yeah, they're really, really low down, you know, on the ground and all that. Which I think was part of the charm too.
Yes.
You know, and had a very clear vision of what they were. You know, they were New York type of characters. They were very urban. They were very hip.
Yes.
And because they were teenagers, I think that's probably what a lot of kids gravitated toward.
They ingratiated themselves nicely.
Oh, yeah.
If they were adults, it wouldn't have been as easy. But because they're teenagers, they're allowed to be willful. They're allowed to go through some of these, you know, personality issues that you wouldn't really expect in adults.
Yes. And I think another thing that really helped the Turtle as a property was that it wasn't wide-noted. It wasn't just like, okay, they're ninjas, so they fight ninjas or people with swords. They had Krang, you know, the Technodrome, all those weird stuff, Rocksteady, Bebop. They were punk rockers from the 80s. I think when a property can diverse itself within its own stories and content and characters, I think that's what really propels it forward. And not be like, oh, we're just watching the same thing over and over.
Sure. And then because you have 4 different people to be able to gravitate towards, you can find your favorite character and imitate that person. And you're like, no, he's the right person in the argument.
Oh, yeah. Well, I think the group mentality makes it very easy for anybody to gravitate towards somebody. But that's not that different from the formula of G.I. Joe and Transformers, where there was like tons of characters that you can always find somebody you like.
Right. But the difference is that there are less characters. And so it's 4 and they almost encompass, you know, one of the 4 key personalities that you'll tend to see. You know what I mean?
I think one of the biggest problems that a lot of the properties or franchise people are trying to create today is that they really limit the number of characters they have.
Sure.
Some have 3, some have 5. And that's kind of about it. And it falls in that formula where you kind of know there's the leader type. You know, either he's the stoic one or he's the one that is trying to learn how to be a leader. You have a big, strong guy. You have a wisecracking character. You have a female. And then you have maybe another younger guy who wants to, you know, become the hero.
Right. It's funny that they treat the female character like it's a personality trait.
Yeah.
Rather than actually giving her something interesting to do.
A lot of times they miss out on that. You know, I think that's kind of the problem with modern day creation is that you can just name all these you know tropes and you go there's nothing unique about them. But Turtles at the time they were very, very different.
Yes.
You know, all 4 of them were very unique. And I think because they were easily identifiable by colors in the cartoon version. You know, the red, blue, orange, and purple. You can easily go, okay, I know who it is. So I think those properties were done very, very smartly. There were things that was very smart about it, why it's successful.
Even their difference in fighting style was sort of exciting.
Yes.
Everyone had a weapon that they sort of liked.
Oh, yeah. Like, okay, they're all very cool weapons. You know, you have sword, sai, nunchuck, and a pole.
A big staff, yeah.
A big staff, you know. So I think the staff is the least interesting one because, you know, everyone's like, oh, that's just a stick. I think nunchuck and swords are the ones that kids really gravitate to.
Yes. So, you know, overall, you know, I think it's a very smart property. And one of the things that I hope to be able to do is just sort of learn some of the lessons and see why they're successful and hopefully port some of those into our properties.
Well, I think that's something as a lesson every creator, every, you know, artist or writer can learn from. You know, these things become successful not by accident. Yep. There's a certain design element to that. They kind of knew what they were talking about. It came out sort of at the right time.
Yeah.
But if you don't have the right idea or the right execution, it's not going to go somewhere. I mean, there were tons of copycats and clones that came out after Ninja Turtle. Street Shark was one of them. Dinosaurs was another one. None of them really caught on as well as the Turtles, which is weird because, you know, no matter how you look at it, kind of like how we started this conversation, it's just odd that something like that became huge, like gigantic, you know, and still going.
It's true. And part of that is, you know, they invited the right people into the business at the right time. Mm-hmm. And then they constantly kept on pushing their brand and finding new avenues to be able to bring it into.
Yes.
They never stopped pushing it, unlike other properties, which I feel just sort of languish in obscurity at a point because, you know, they come up with something really great and really interesting, but then they don't follow it up. They made sure that they always had branding to be able to go along with it. I can't think of a time when I didn't have something Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles.
Oh yeah, you go to stores right now, you can still buy turtle stuff.
Exactly,
it's pretty funny. I mean, when I was watching them in the late '80s, there was stuff you can buy in the store, and now you can go and do it again.
Yep.
Oh,
it's very smart. So, guys, if you liked this video, please make sure to click the like button down below. And also, please make sure to subscribe, and hit the little bell icon. It really helps us with our search rankings. We're trying to reach our first goal of reaching 100 subscribers. With that, we'll be able to start live streaming on the channel. And hopefully, we'll be able to start reaching more people. So, we appreciate you guys for coming and watching.
Yeah, well, hope you guys enjoy the content, enjoy the talk, and see you guys next time.
Alrighty, bye-bye.